The game Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly tells the story of a Japanese village called Minakami, where after a sacrificial ceremony gone wrong, vanished off the face of the planet, almost as if the entire village had been transported into another dimension. A pair of twins, Mayu and Mio, stumble into the village and become separated. Mio is then forced to traverse the ruins of a once prosperous community, where the ghosts of the previous inhabitants wander through perpetual nighttime, reliving the torment of their last day on Earth. As for the ritual that cursed Minakami, it involved a pair of twins and the sacrifice of one at the hands of the other. You see, Minakami Village had been built, either intentionally or unknowingly, above a pit known as the Hellish Abyss, a direct doorway into hell. To keep the Hellish Abyss sealed, or more like pacified, it required a sacrificial ceremony every few years. Failing to do so would result in the repentance, an expulsion of a dark miasma known as the Malice, as well as the releasing of souls of those previously sacrificed. When the ceremony called the Crimson Sacrifice went awry, the Malice confined the Minakami village in an endless time loop of pain and regret. A few who survived the initial wave of chaos went insane and finished up the remaining survivors. Any travelers who wandered too close would be trapped in the village, at least until the Crimson Sacrifice was properly followed and the spirits freed. Hence, why Mio and Mayu, being twins, were lured into Minakami in the first place. Depending on the way the player beats the game, you can free Minakami Village from the Malice. But there is not much of a happy ending, because when the village is brought back to the real world, the ruins of houses, shrines, and roads are shown to be submerged under a lake caused by a dam, and thus erasing the Minakami village for good. I bring up the topic of Fatal Frame 2 specifically because I find it fascinating just how inspired the game was on a popular Japanese urban legend, as well as the Shinto religion, and perhaps to some extent on real-life events. In the late 90s, an anonymous letter arrived at television network Nippon TV's headquarters. The letter requested a filming crew be sent to Innunaaki Village, found near Mount Innunaaki in the Fukuoka prefecture. While letters of this sort weren't uncommon, there were two things that really stuck out. First, there was the letter's title, which went by "The Village in Japan That Isn't Part of Japan." And second, there was no Innunaaki Village in any map. The letter described a village where haunting screams and howling can be heard in the surrounding woods, and if you headed past the Innunaaki tunnel and took a good look around, you'd find a hidden path. This path would grow smaller and smaller the further you went, leading you deeper and deeper into the woods. Finally, an old signpost would greet you with the following words: "Japanese laws not in effect past this point." If you still chose to proceed, you'd find yourself in a seemingly abandoned village with overgrown plant life, unkept houses, and villagers who were described as feral. Soon after this letter, rumors spread like wildfire, and people being people began searching for this supposed forgotten village that was living in its own little world. What they discovered could only be best described as disturbing. Rumors say that Innunaaki was founded by people who were ostracized by Japanese society. This type of village was called etamura. Essentially, they are little communities comprised of kegare people, or impure and defiled individuals who worked as butchers, tanners, undertakers, and executioners. I'm sure you're confused. Let me explain. In Shinto, it is believed that everything, including animals, has a soul, or a divine spirit called a kami, not to be confused with God, the supreme being often translated as kami. And it is through purity and freedom from sin, tsumi, and pollutants, kegare, that would allow humans to live harmoniously as kami after they die. Humans are believed to be pure, while blood, sickness, and death are considered kegare. Thus, even temporary events like menstruation, childbirth, and sickness require purification rituals. However, death was considered the worst of all pollutants, so much so that Shinto shrines are not built near cemeteries. This brings us back to kegare. Back in feudal times, occupations were hereditary, so if your father worked as a butcher, you and your children would too. And so, entire bloodlines were deemed contaminated. These contaminated people were considered an unofficial class during the Edo period, and it was exactly in this period when Innunaaki was allegedly built. Due to being treated like outcasts, the people of Innunaaki rejected the Japanese constitution, even in modern times. Laws against stealing, assault, or even murder are not regulated, so just about anything could happen. And God help you if you stumbled into the village, because the residents have a strong aversion towards outsiders. The very few visitors who made it out safely describe the house as being booby-trapped. Some of these are used to hurt, while others are used to alert inhabitants of an intruder. Upon hearing the commotion, men with axes and sickles would jump out, screaming like animals, and rush to hunt down the unfortunate visitors. People speculate that Innunaaki was cursed when several residents started the practice of strange rituals and the worship of evil entities. But what these might be is unknown. These same people believe that Innunaaki's inhabitants aren't real, but ghostly apparitions of the villagers who went insane after anarchy erupted. Another story is that of the phone booth. You know that sometimes in some far-off roads, you can find emergency phones? Well, supposedly, there exists a rundown phone booth near Innunaaki Tunnel that rings randomly at night. Those who answer it would find no one on the other line. And soon after, these responders would go missing, adding more fuel to the fire, as it led people to believe that those who answered the call were spirited away into the village, to be trapped there forever. Fortunately, or unfortunately for some of you, the story of Innunaaki isn't real. There is no haunted village with homicidal residents. There is no sign warning trespassers. And definitely, there is no spooky phone that transports you into some kind of liminal village. But that will be it for all the lies. Here are the truths. There is an Innunaaki tunnel, but due to a horrific incident in 1988, it was sealed off permanently. A group of local teenagers and young adults abducted a factory worker and demanded he give them his car. When he refused, the boys poured gasoline on him and set him on fire inside the tunnel. The boys were arrested, but the news of that awful incident brought more and more people to the area. The tunnel was so old and poorly maintained that it was deemed too dangerous by the government, and so the tunnel was sealed off and a new one was constructed nearby. And last but not least, there was an Innunaaki village constructed during the Edo period. However, this was a regular little old village with nothing supernatural about it. It had a well-functioning economy with a coal mine and ceramic and steel productions. Coincidentally, the village was submerged in 1986 due to the construction of a dam, an ending that is eerily similar to Minakami Village from Fatal Frame 2. I'm not entirely sure if it was done deliberately, but remember what I said about purification rituals in Shinto? One of the most common cleansing agents happens to be water. And it was exactly in water that both villages found their end. Although Innunaaki isn't real, there's been a rise in rural villages in Japan that are just being abandoned, with only a handful of people keeping it on the map. At least for now. Well, in any case, I know Fatal Frame will be on my mind for a while, considering that I have a twin sister, and I am the youngest. If you know, you know. So yeah, I think I'll just stay home and not travel anywhere for a long time.